So we're at the ceremony. I'm super pumped up because we have a complete wedding here to go through with a bride, a groom, an officiant, some wedding guests. It's outdoors, so the lighting's beautiful, but the lighting's not always gonna be beautiful. Sometimes you're gonna show up and there's gonna be harsh light, there's gonna be mixed light, maybe it's a sunset wedding, so you always have to be prepared with proper lighting and most importantly, proper sound, because the most important thing we're trying to get out of the ceremony is audio for our film. So I'm gonna make this as easy as I can for you. I'm gonna walk you through step by step exactly how we cover a wedding ceremony. My coverage for a wedding ceremony is not gonna change 99% of the time. Now I'm gonna bring in the cast, the bride, the groom, the officiant, everybody, and let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is audio for the ceremony. This is really, really important. On my team, I have designated Jessica as a primary audio person that's responsible for recording great sound from the ceremony. Now I'm noticing at this ceremony, they're using a wireless handheld microphone. This is a great situation because I know during the ceremony, the officiant's going to be holding that mic right up to her mouth. What I need to do is I need to get her to hold up that microphone to the bride and the groom so I can get some great quality sound. Now this microphone that they're going to be using, this is your transmitter. And basically what's happening is this is transmitting a signal over to a receiver. Now that receiver for sure is going to be over by the DJ or this sound person. You need to find the receiver, you need to talk to the DJ and get them to buy into this concept of you introducing a splitter into the mix. This splitter has absolutely no bearing on the signal that the DJ is trying to use to project out to the guests. What we're trying to do is we're trying to be independent from the DJ. So we're not recording any interference from his board. Now let me explain to you how this splitter works. So what we need to do is this cable that's plugged into his XLR mic input, it's coming from that receiver. We need to get the DJ or sound person to disconnect this so we can plug it into the input side of our splitter. Very fast, that's taken less than 5 seconds. Off the back end, we've got these two outputs. One's gonna go to our field recorder, which I'm gonna simply plug in. And this is all extremely fast. The other output is simply gonna go back to where we took that XLR out from the receiver. So the DJ's got a direct signal, we've got a direct signal that we're recording, and I'm happy. But what happens if you show up to this situation and there is no sound system in place? This has actually happened to me several times. This is why I tell you, you have to show up prepared with proper sound equipment, because in that instance, we're gonna have to introduce our own. So we make sure to have a few wireless lav mics in our kit to cover these cases, as well as a handheld wireless mic, and at times even a mic stand. We're totally set up, we're ready to go, everything sounds great. Now let's shoot this event. Now I want to get some establishing shots of the venue. Now here's the thing, I typically do not even use the drone on the day of the wedding, believe it or not, because it's too chaotic and I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time to actually use the drone. So a lot of times you're gonna see me use the drone the day before the wedding and even the day after the wedding. Now the thing about the drone is you should not own one of these things before you have invested in the essentials, obviously, right? Proper camera, proper lenses, lighting, proper sound, and then start looking to the toys that are going to raise your production value. But certainly do not invest in something like this before you have invested in the essentials that you need to shoot the job. Because if you think about it, these drone shots, they only account for what? Maybe like 1 or 2 shots in the film, but you're gonna rely on lighting and audio for about 98% of the film. So you have to invest in those things first. Now, I don't want you to force these drone shots. If you get up in the air and things do not look good, do not force the shots. Don't be shy about just landing the drone and going in a different direction. If things don't look good because of maybe cars, trucks, a lot of times you're gonna see these trucks that are coming in with florals, they look ugly. There's gonna be cranes, stuff like that. If it's gonna detract from the film, I'm not gonna use the drone. Here you've got a lot of greens, so I'm assuming these drone shots are gonna look really, really nice. So I'm here with my assistant, Anthony, who's also my licensed drone pilot. I don't want to fly the drone because I will literally crash the drone. So I've got Anthony flying this drone. He's gonna get me some amazing shots. So right now, we're gonna put this in the sky. I wanna take a look at the location and get some epic establishing shots of this venue. All right, so basically what's gonna happen here is, obviously I'm not flying the drone, but I do wanna direct the shot. So I'm gonna come up, I'm gonna take a look at Anthony's screen. Anthony, what do you have? How's it look? How's your exposure?
Good. Histogram's right here.
Okay, so listen, the most important thing here and throughout the day is gonna be your exposures. You gotta have proper exposure, especially with this camera that's mounted on this drone. You're not gonna have a lot of latitude in post to try to bring back details either in your whites or your blacks. So you have to kind of nail these exposures. Exposure looks good. We can see the detail in all the whites. Now, Anthony, what I want you to do is I want you to pull far back over these trees, and I want to get a shot creeping up to the venue here. We don't need a ton of shots, but I want to leave here with at least 3 or 4 different looks of the venue and the surrounding location. This looks amazing because you've got all these trees, you got all these greens. This is very picturesque. This is an ideal situation for drone establishing shots. Okay, that's looking really good. I'm liking this. Okay, so the cool thing about this particular drone is you can actually program the flight and do like a point of interest shot. We're gonna set this up, Anthony.
Okay.
I want to do a point of interest, and I want to loop around this venue, revealing the greens and everything that's beautiful that's surrounding the venue. Okay, so we're at the ceremony. Everything looks great. I've got my team in place. They've got my instructions. I've already assessed the situation here. I've looked into lighting. I've looked into audio. Everything's set up. Now we got to get into camera roles and responsibilities, and I want to talk about that right now. So the first thing that I'm going to have is I'm going to have Jessica, who's my main shooter, like I discussed before, is always going to be set up on a tripod with a 70-200 lens. The reason that I want this lens is she's responsible for the main shot of the officiant and the bride during the vows and ring exchange. My shot, which is going to be the number 2 shot, is going to be the center camera. Now the lens I choose, it's going to depend on the length of the aisle. If I have a longer aisle, I'm going to get set up on a 70-200 or a 135 lens, but I'm always going to have a 24-70 lens to give me a wider looking shot. And also there's going to be times during the ceremony where maybe the photographer doesn't want to shoot as long, and maybe the photographer wants to move up. So I want to be able to move up side by side with the photographer. I do not want a situation where the photographer is going to move in front of my lens. I own every Canon lens imaginable, so I can literally move with this photographer side by side at all times, and we don't have to be in each other's shots. The other thing I'm going to have back here, I'm going to have a gimbal. Now, I'm not looking to be creative during the ceremony. The only thing we're looking for the ceremony is to be solid, because the most important thing we're trying to pull out of the ceremony is the dialogue. I need the vows and ring exchange, and I need great audio. So if it's a short ceremony, I'm not even thinking about doing anything creative. But if it's a longer ceremony, maybe the ceremony is like 60 minutes or 90 minutes, and I'm just kind of sitting around not doing too much, I'm gonna grab the gimbal and I'm gonna look for a creative shot. But remember, don't force any of your shots. Just like we talked about with the drone, if it doesn't look good, don't use it. But obviously, like let's say you're inside of a church and everything looks amazing and you have amazing architecture on the walls and the ceiling and things like that, I'm definitely gonna take advantage. I'm gonna grab the gimbal and I'm gonna get a few epic shots of the interior of the church, okay? Or in this case, it's very picturesque. So I think it's gonna be an amazing shot, and it's gonna add some value to our ceremony. Now, Anthony's set up over here. The only time that I'm really gonna use Anthony is for vows and ring exchange. Outside of that, I need him making me quicker, okay? Especially if it's low light or if it's a nighttime ceremony, he's actually gonna be lighting for me and always kind of ensure that my shot is looking spectacular at all times. Now, if it's light out like this, nice soft light, and it's not a low lit situation where I need light, now I'm gonna kind of free him up. My instructions to Anthony is gonna be, don't give me any basic lockdown shots. I want you to get me some shots, but I want you to kind of think outside the box. I want some creative type of shots. So now I'm really taking advantage of Anthony, because I know Jessica's shot, it's not gonna be the most creative shot in the world, but it's gonna be that solid shot that I need at all times of the officiant, the vows, and the ring exchange. And I also have a solid shot, obviously, with my center camera. Okay, so we got about 5 or 10 minutes before guests start arriving. What I wanna do right now is I wanna use this gimbal to get a couple wide shots here. It looks very picturesque. And I also wanna go in and get some tight detail shots of the flowers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have my team pull back so they're not in the shot. Jessica, just come back here. Anthony, come back here. Now, if you notice, there's also some DJ equipment back there. I do not wanna get any junk in my frame. So maybe I'm gonna work a different angle for these wide shots. So let's see how this looks. Now remember, exposure is gonna be key here. You do not wanna blow out your highlights. Here, the easiest thing that I do is I try to expose for the sky. And on the wide shots, that generally works out pretty well. Let's see how this looks. I like doing some high to low stuff. So I'm gonna start high and I'm gonna come down low. And what you wanna do here to kind of stay steady is try to walk heel to toe, and I've got that shot. If you're not pressed for time, try it a couple different ways. One of the other things that I'll do with the gimbal is, I'll start back here and I'll kind of just fly over the chairs and see how that looks. So we can try a couple different looks. One of the things that I try to do with the gimbal is I try to do the movements as slow as possible. Usually when gimbal movements are really fast, they're a little bit jarring depending what direction you're going with your film. Now, if you do it nice and slow, you can always ramp up the speed later if need be. Now, since I've exposed for the sky, the details in the flowers probably went underexposed a little bit. So what I wanna do now is, I wanna come up here, I'm gonna get one last wide shot. Just coming down the center. Again, I'll do some high to low stuff and just be creative. Think outside the box, visualize a little bit, and I'll just creep forward just like that. I'm gonna try to get some of this detail in the flowers. Now, when you're this close with the lens, you're gonna have to kind of pre-focus, or if you have a camera that's got the face detection autofocus, you can kind of focus in on the flowers and just achieve your shot that way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this on manual and I'm gonna manually focus this.